The silent warning. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Confederation stretched across 3 kilometers of crystallized space, its walls shimmering with the light of 1,000 star systems. Representatives from 47 species gathered in their designated zones, each section adjusted for specific atmospheric and gravitational needs. At the center of it all, standing in the newcomer's circle, Ambassador Maria Volkov felt the weight of 1 billion human souls on her shoulders. The praetor of the assembly, a towering chromath whose crystalline body reflected rainbow patterns across the chamber, raised 4 of his 6 arms for silence. His voice resonated through translation matrices, reaching every species in their native tongue. The primitive species from Sol 3, designation Humanity, has requested full membership status in the Galactic Confederation. As per protocol, we shall now vote. Maria had spent 3 years learning the languages, customs, and politics of the galaxy. She had memorized every treaty, every precedent that might help humanity's case. What she hadn't prepared for was the laughter. It started with the Vendari delegation, their chittering sounds echoing through their environmental dome. Then the Zalari joined in, their bioluminescent forms pulsing with amusement. Soon, half the assembly was expressing their species' equivalent of mockery. With respect, Praetor, the Zalari Prime Minister stood, his translucent body crackling with electrical patterns. These humans have barely mastered fusion power. Their fastest ships would take decades to reach our frontier worlds. What could they possibly offer the Confederation? Maria stepped forward, her voice steady despite the humiliation burning in her chest. We offer innovation, determination, and a unique perspective on problem solving. Our history shows that humans excel when faced with challenges. The chromath praetor's facets gleamed as he tilted his massive head. Your species still relies on chemical propulsion and kinetic weapons. The Confederation mastered energy manipulation 7,000 cycles ago. Return when you have something relevant to contribute. The vote was swift and unanimous. Humanity's application was rejected without a single supporting voice. As Maria left the assembly, she heard the Vendari ambassador's parting words. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, little mammals. 3 months later, in a bunker buried beneath the Swiss Alps, Maria stood before the United Earth Defense Council. The room was sparse, utilitarian, filled with military officers and scientists whose faces bore the same grim determination she felt. They laughed at us, she reported, her diplomatic composure finally cracking. They think we're nothing more than clever animals playing with sticks and stones. General Harrison, a weathered veteran of the Mars colonial wars, leaned forward. Then it's time for Project Thunder Rail. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, lead physicist for Earth's Advanced Weapons Division, activated a holographic display. A long, sleek weapon materialized in blue light, its twin rails extending nearly 50 meters. We've been developing this for the past decade, ever since first contact. While they've been focusing on energy weapons, we've perfected kinetic acceleration. The weapon was beautiful in its simplicity. No exotic particles, no zero-point energy fields, just electromagnetic acceleration pushing tungsten slugs to velocities that approached 15% the speed of light. The math was elegant, the physics undeniable, and the destructive potential absolute. Energy shields are designed to dissipate heat and deflect plasma, Dr. Tanaka explained. But they operate on frequency modulation. A solid projectile moving at relativistic speeds doesn't care about frequencies. It's pure momentum transfer. Admiral Sandra Mitchell, commander of Earth's growing fleet, studied the specifications. How many can we build? We have 12 operational platforms, Dr. Tanaka replied. 6 more in production, each one capable of firing a slug every 30 seconds. General Harrison stood, his scarred hands pressed against the table. The Confederation controls the jump gates. They've locked us out of galactic trade routes. We're being systematically isolated. Maria nodded slowly. They want us to wither away, to realize our place at the bottom of their hierarchy. Then we show them they're wrong, Admiral Mitchell said. We give them one chance to reconsider, and if they refuse, the room fell silent. Everyone understood what came next. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the EUS Prometheus, humanity's first true warship. Unlike the elegant curves and flowing designs of Confederation vessels, the Prometheus was all angles and armor, built for one purpose: to deliver death at distances the galaxy had forgotten were possible. Her crew of 300 represented Earth's finest. engineers who had spent years studying alien technology through telescopes and intercepted transmissions, gunners who had trained in simulators until they could calculate firing solutions in their sleep, officers who understood that they might be humanity's last hope. "Commander," Lieutenant Torres called from the sensor station, "we're approaching Station Omega-7. The station hung in space like a jewel, its energy shield shimmering in patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't a symbol of humanity's imprisonment. This was the checkpoint, the gate that kept Earth locked in its own solar system while the rest of the galaxy flourished. Sarah opened a channel on all frequencies. "Station Omega-7. This is Commander Chen of the Earth United Ship Prometheus. We are here to deliver a message to the Galactic Confederation." The response came quickly, dripping with condescension. "Primitive vessel, you are in violation of Confederation Space Restriction Order 7739. Return to your system immediately or face consequences." Sarah smiled grimly. "The message is as follows. Earth demands immediate reconsideration of our membership application. We have developed new defensive capabilities that we believe warrant reassessment. You have 72 hours to respond." The station commander, a Vendari whose insectoid features were visible on the view screen, chittered in amusement. "Defensive capabilities? Your chemical rockets and metal pellet weapons? Return home, mammals, before we decide to end your species' embarrassment permanently." The channel closed. Sarah turned to her weapons officer. "Mark the station's position. If they don't respond in 72 hours, it becomes our first demonstration." For 3 days, Earth waited. Every television, every network, every communication device on the planet was tuned to the same frequency, waiting for a response that never came. The Confederation's silence was louder than any rejection. In the assembly halls of the Confederation, the Earth's ultimatum had become the latest source of entertainment. Videos of the blocky human ship with its primitive construction were shared across species networks. The Zalari composed mocking songs about the metal-throwing mammals, while the Chromath used it as a teaching example of developmental limitations in younger species. Admiral Thexera of the Zalari fleet was particularly amused. His species had developed beyond physical form 2 millennia ago, existing as pure energy beings that could manipulate electromagnetic fields at will. The idea that humans thought their new defensive capabilities meant anything was hilarious. "Perhaps we should visit these humans," he suggested to his fleet commanders during a strategy meeting. "Show them what real power looks like. It would be educational for them." His subordinates pulsed in agreement. A small demonstration of Confederation superiority would put these upstarts in their place permanently. Back on the Prometheus, the countdown reached 0. Sarah stood at the center of her bridge, surrounded by displays showing trajectory calculations that had been checked and rechecked 100 times. Station Omega-7 sat exactly 3.7 million kilometers away, far beyond the range of any conventional weapon, beyond even the maximum range of Confederation plasma cannons. "All hands, this is the commander," Sarah announced throughout the ship. "Today we show the galaxy that humanity will not be ignored. Today, we introduce them to the Thunder Rail." Dr. Tanaka's voice crackled over the comm from Earth. "Prometheus, you are authorized for demonstration. Single slug, center mass." Sarah nodded to her weapons officer. "Charge the rails." The ship hummed with power as massive capacitors drew energy from the fusion reactors. Magnetic fields of incredible intensity formed along the twin rails that ran the length of the ship's spine. In the loading chamber, a tungsten slug the size of a ground car was positioned with microscopic precision. "Target locked," Lieutenant Torres announced. "Firing solution calculated. Omega-7 will maintain current position for next 43 seconds. Fire." There was no sound in space, but inside the Prometheus, the discharge was like thunder. The slug accelerated from 0 to 45,000 kilometers per second in less than a heartbeat. The recoil pushed the massive warship backward, its engines firing automatically to compensate. For 12 seconds, the slug traveled through the void, an invisible harbinger of humanity's statement to the galaxy. On Station Omega-7, alarms suddenly screamed. Their sensors, designed to detect energy signatures and approaching vessels, barely registered the incoming projectile until it was too late. The station's shields, masterworks of Confederation technology, were designed to handle energy. They could dissipate the heat of a star, deflect antimatter explosions, bend light itself. But they were not designed for what hit them. The tungsten slug struck with the force of a tactical nuclear weapon. It punched through the shields like tissue paper, the kinetic energy converting to heat and pressure that tore through the station's superstructure. In an instant, Omega-7 ceased to exist as a functional structure, becoming instead an expanding cloud of debris and evacuating atmosphere. The galaxy went silent. The thunder speaks, Admiral Thex. Era felt the psychic scream of Station Omega-7's destruction ripple through the quantum communication network. His energy form flickered with shock as the data streams flooded his consciousness. This was impossible. The humans were primitive, using projectile weapons that the Confederation had abandoned eons ago. Analysis, he commanded, his electrical patterns forming sharp, agitated spikes. His science officer, a younger Zalari whose form still held traces of their species' original bioluminescent patterns, pulsed nervously. Admiral, the projectile traveled at 15% light speed. The kinetic energy delivered was extraordinary. Our shields aren't calibrated for this type of attack. Around them, the first Zalari fleet materialized from hyperspace. 47 vessels, each one a masterpiece of energy manipulation technology, ships that could harness the power of stars, that could project force fields capable of containing black holes. The pride of the Confederation, here to teach humanity its final lesson. Admiral, his communications officer announced, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. On the screen, Commander Sarah Chen appeared. Her face was calm, professional, but her eyes held something that made even Thexara's energy form pause. It wasn't fear or anger, but certainty. Admiral Thexara, I presume, she said. I am Commander Chen of the EUS Prometheus. We regret the destruction of Station Omega-7, but our warnings were ignored. I strongly advise you to reconsider your approach. Humanity seeks peace and membership in the Confederation, not war. Thexara's form blazed with indignation. You dare threaten the Zalari fleet? We who have patrolled these stars since before your species discovered fire? You will surrender immediately for judgment. Sarah's expression didn't change. Admiral, I need you to understand something. You see one ship, but Earth has been preparing for this moment since you laughed us out of the assembly. We are not threatening you. We are trying to save you. The transmission ended. Thexara pulsed with rage. All ships, combat formation. Disable that primitive vessel and prepare it for boarding. The Zalari fleet moved with practiced precision, their energy forms allowing them to control their ships through direct neural interface. Shields powered to maximum, plasma cannons charged. They approached the lone human vessel like wolves circling a lamb. On the Prometheus, Sarah watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Everything was proceeding exactly as Earth strategists had predicted. The Confederation's arrogance would be their downfall. Commander, her sensor officer reported, detecting massive energy buildup from the Zalari fleet. They're preparing to fire. Signal the fleet, Sarah commanded. Operation Thunderfall is authorized. Space around the Prometheus suddenly filled with shadows. 12 Earth warships dropped their stealth systems simultaneously, each one identical to the Prometheus in its angular, utilitarian design. They had been waiting, hidden by technology reverse-engineered from crashed Confederation probes, improved with human innovation. But the real surprise was yet to come. From Earth's moon, from Mars, from the asteroid belt, massive rail platforms came online. These were not ships, but orbital weapons platforms, each one sporting rails that dwarfed even those on the warships. The galaxy had dismissed humanity for using kinetic weapons. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. Admiral Thexara's confidence wavered for the first time in centuries. Impossible. Our sensors should have detected them. His tactical officer's form flickered with alarm. Admiral, I'm reading massive electromagnetic signatures from multiple vectors. They're all charging weapons simultaneously. The first Zalari ship to fire was the Luminous Dream, pride of their fleet. Its plasma beam lanced out toward the Prometheus, a river of star-hot energy that should have vaporized the human ship instantly. The beam struck the Prometheus's hull and did nothing. The ugly angular armor wasn't just metal. It was layered composite materials specifically designed to absorb and dissipate energy attacks, backed by superconducting networks that channeled the heat away. Then humanity responded. 13 ships and 6 orbital platforms fired simultaneously. 19 tungsten slugs, each one precisely aimed, each one carrying enough kinetic energy to shatter a small moon. The Zalari fleet's shields flared brilliantly as they tried to adapt, but it was like trying to stop a hammer with a net. The luminous dream took 3 hits. The first slug penetrated its shields and carved through its elegant hull like it wasn't there. The second hit its power core, converting the ship's own energy into an explosion that briefly outshone the local star. The third was unnecessary, passing through the expanding debris field that had once been the pride of the Zalari fleet. Evasive maneuvers. Thexara commanded, but it was already too late. The humans had calculated every possible escape vector, every dodge, every tactical option. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Ship after ship fell. The constellation's Whisper tried to jump to hyperspace, only to find a slug waiting for it at the exact point where it would emerge from its initial acceleration. The Solar Wind attempted to return fire, its crew frantically recalibrating their shields. But the human ships had already moved, their positions calculated to the microsecond. Through it all, Sarah Chen stood unmoved on her bridge, watching the tactical display with the detached professionalism of someone who had simulated this moment 1,000 times. "Target their flagship," she commanded. "Disable, don't destroy." The Prometheus's railgun spoke once more. The slug was different this time, smaller, precisely crafted. It struck Thexara's flagship at exactly the right angle to cripple its engines and weapons without breaching the core. The massive vessel tumbled helplessly through space, its admiral's energy form flickering with emotions his species hadn't felt in millennia: fear and humiliation. In 12 minutes it was over. The first Zalari fleet, undefeated in 3,000 years of peacekeeping, was gone. Debris fields expanded where elegant ships had once sailed. Emergency beacons flickered from escape pods that the human ships carefully avoided targeting. Sarah opened a channel to the crippled flagship. "Admiral Thexara, do you yield?" The Zalari's form was dim now, depleted.
"How? You're primitives."
"You don't even have faster-than-light travel." "We're humans," Sarah replied simply. "We've spent our entire existence throwing rocks at our problems. We just got better at it. While you were mastering energy manipulation, we were asking ourselves, what happens when you throw a rock really, really fast?" She paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. "The answer, Admiral, is that physics doesn't care about your technological sophistication. Momentum is momentum. Force equals mass times acceleration. Your shields were designed to stop energy, not matter." Across the galaxy, emergency sessions were being called. The destruction of the Zalari fleet was being broadcast on every channel, every network. The primitive humans with their kinetic weapons had done the impossible. They had shown that the Confederation's supposed superiority was built on assumptions that no one had questioned for millennia. The Chromath Praetor himself called for order in the assembly. "The humans have made their point. We must reconsider." But it was the Vendori ambassador, the same one who had mocked humanity months ago, who spoke the words that would change everything. They could have destroyed us all. They had our fleet at their mercy, and they chose to disable, not destroy. They showed restraint that we did not. On Earth, the bunker beneath the Swiss Alps had transformed into a celebration, but Maria Volkov stood apart, speaking quietly with General Harrison. "This is just the beginning. We've shown them we can fight. Now we need to show them we can build." Harrison nodded. "The railguns were just the first step. Dr. Tanaka has proposals for mining operations, transport systems, construction methods, all based on the same principles. Turns out, throwing rocks really fast solves a lot of problems." 3 days later, a different Maria Volkov stood in the same spot in the Grand Assembly Hall. This time, no one laughed. The Chromath Praetor's crystalline form seemed somehow dimmer as he spoke. "The species known as humanity has requested reconsideration of their membership application. They have demonstrated capabilities previously unrecognized by this assembly." Maria stepped forward, her voice carrying across the silent hall. "Honored representatives, humanity comes not as conquerors but as equals. We offer our kinetic technology freely to all member species. Our railguns can be tools of construction as easily as weapons of war. Imagine launching cargo across star systems without fuel costs, mining asteroids with precision impacts, building structures in space using controlled kinetic assembly." She paused, looking at each delegation in turn. "You dismissed us because we throw rocks. But sometimes the simple solution is the best solution. We don't seek to replace your technology. We seek to complement it. Together we can build something greater than either of us alone." The vote was called. This time, it was unanimous in the other direction. Earth was welcomed into the Galactic Confederation not as a primitive species to be pitied, but as innovators who had reminded an ancient galaxy that there was always more than one way to solve a problem. Admiral Thexara, his form rebuilt but forever changed by the experience, approached Sarah Chen after the ceremony. "Commander, I owe you an apology. We thought evolution meant abandoning physical solutions for energy manipulation. You've shown us that we abandoned an entire branch of physics in our arrogance." Sarah smiled, the first genuine warmth she'd shown since the conflict began. "Admiral, humanity has a saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. The Confederation brought energy weapons to a physics fight. We just reminded you that in space, Newton's laws are still king." As the Earth delegation left the assembly, the Vendari ambassador chittered something to his aide. The translation came through a moment later. "Remind me never to laugh at the mammals again." The galaxy had learned an important lesson. It didn't matter how advanced your technology was if a rock moving at 15% the speed of light hit you in the face. And humanity, the species that had perfected throwing rocks since the dawn of their existence, had finally found their place among the stars. In the years that followed, human rail technology revolutionized galactic civilization. Cargo could be launched across systems for a fraction of the cost. Asteroid mining became efficient and profitable. Construction projects that would have taken decades were completed in years. The same technology that had humbled the Zalari fleet became the backbone of a new era of prosperity. And in every human embassy, in every ship of Earth's growing merchant fleet, hung a simple plaque with humanity's unofficial motto, "We throw rocks really, really fast." The galaxy never laughed at humanity again. The hunters become the hunted, the exploration vessel. Defiant dawn drifted through the cosmic void like a silver needle threading through black silk. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge, watching the stars wheel slowly past the main viewport as her ship maintained course through the Nexus Corridor, one of the galaxy's busiest trade routes. The soft blue glow of the navigation displays cast gentle shadows across her weathered face, highlighting the satisfaction in her dark eyes. The mission to the Kepler system had been a complete success. First contact with an entirely new species, peaceful negotiations, and the establishment of preliminary trade agreements. The Kepler people were remarkable, their crystalline cities floating in the upper atmosphere of their gas giant homeworld. More importantly, they possessed advanced medical technology that could revolutionize human healthcare. Rodriguez couldn't wait to deliver the diplomatic pouches to Earth Command. Chief Navigator Tom Chen looked up from his console, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Captain, we're approaching the halfway point through the Nexus. All shipping lanes are clear and we're making excellent time." "Good work, Tom. How are our passengers handling the journey?" Rodriguez asked, though she already knew the answer. The 12 passengers in the secure compartments had been model travelers, quiet and undemanding throughout the 3-week journey from Kepler space. "No complaints from Deck 7, ma'am. They keep to themselves just like they have since we picked them up," replied Communications Officer Sarah Park. Rodriguez nodded. The passengers were classified cargo, and she'd been given strict orders not to inquire about their nature or destination. All she knew was that they were human. They were being transferred from a classified research facility to Earth, and they required minimal life support. Easy money for a routine transport run. Dr. James Walsh emerged from the medical bay, stretching his back. "Just finished the weekly crew health checks. Everyone's in good shape, though I'd recommend we increase the vitamin D supplements. Long-haul space travel always depletes it." The comfortable routine of ship life was shattered when the proximity alarms began screaming. Red lights flashed across the bridge as sensor readings flooded the displays. Chen's face went pale as he read the incoming data. "Captain, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace around us. 12 vessels, all of them massive, they're moving to surround us." Rodriguez felt ice form in her stomach. 12 ships in perfect ambush formation meant only one thing in this part of space. Identification? "Reading Corvani energy signatures, Captain. It's a Ravager fleet." The blood drained from every face on the bridge. The Corvani Ravager fleets were nightmare stories told in spacer bars across the galaxy. Alien pirates who didn't just steal cargo, They enslaved entire crews and sold them to the flesh markets of the Outer Rim. Species that encountered the Corvani either submitted immediately or faced complete annihilation. The largest of the alien vessels, a kilometer-long behemoth bristling with weapon ports, moved closer to the defiant dawn. Its dark hull was scarred, with the marks of countless battles, and strange symbols were carved along its length. Each symbol represented a different species the Corvani had conquered. "Incoming transmission," Park announced, her voice barely steady. On screen, the main display flickered to life, revealing the bridge of the Corvani flagship. The creature that appeared made several crew members step backward involuntarily. Fleet Commander Zethkar stood nearly 3 meters tall, his muscular frame covered in chitinous armor that seemed to grow directly from his gray-green skin. 4 arms extended from his torso, each ending in clawed hands that could crush a human skull. His head was elongated like a predatory insect, with compound eyes that glowed a sickly yellow. When he spoke, rows of razor-sharp teeth were visible in his mouth. "Human vessel. I am Fleet Commander Zethkar of the 7th Ravager Fleet. You have entered Corvani hunting grounds. Your ship, cargo, and crew are now property of the Corvani Empire. Lower your shields and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in the immediate execution of half your crew." Zethkar's reputation preceded him throughout the galaxy. He had personally enslaved over 40 different species during his career. His fleet had never met resistance they couldn't overcome, and he had never failed to break the spirit of his captives. The sight of his massive form was usually enough to make entire crews surrender without firing a shot. Rodriguez looked around her bridge at the terrified faces of her crew. They were explorers and scientists, not warriors. The defiant Dawn mounted only basic defensive systems, nothing that could challenge a single Corvani warship, let alone an entire fleet. "You have 30 seconds to comply, human. Your species is unknown to us, but flesh is flesh. You will make adequate slaves once properly broken." The communication channel closed, leaving the bridge in terrible silence. Rodriguez felt the weight of command crushing down on her shoulders. Every captain dreaded this moment, when the only choices were surrender or death. "Captain," Chen whispered, "what are your orders?" Before Rodriguez could answer, the elevator doors to the bridge slid open. What emerged made everyone freeze in shock. The man who stepped onto the bridge was tall and powerfully built, but that wasn't what stopped conversation. His eyes glowed with a faint silver light, and when he moved it was with a fluid grace that seemed almost inhuman. "Captain Rodriguez, I'm Sergeant Marcus Kane. I believe we need to talk." 2 more figures emerged from the elevator behind Kane, a woman with the same silver-eyed gaze and a compact man whose movements suggested coiled violence. All 3 wore simple civilian clothes, but something about them screamed danger. "Who are you people?" Rodriguez demanded, though part of her was beginning to suspect. "We're your passengers from Deck 7, Project Apex, United Earth Defense Corps. We're the first generation of genetically enhanced soldiers returning from our inaugural field mission." Kane's voice was calm, but there was something predatory in his tone. "And those aliens outside just made a very serious mistake." Rodriguez stared at him. Genetic enhancement was still theoretical as far as she knew. The science existed, but the ethical debates had prevented any practical application. Enhanced how? Increased muscle density, enhanced reflexes, improved healing, tactical processing upgrades, and a few other modifications that are classified. We were deployed to handle situations that normal human soldiers couldn't survive. Kane moved to the sensor station, studying the Corvani fleet positions with professional interest. 12 ships, standard Ravager fleet configuration. They're expecting easy prey. "Sergeant, with all due respect, there are only 12 of you. Even if you are enhanced, those are warships out there." Kane smiled, and Rodriguez noticed his teeth seemed sharper than normal human teeth. "Captain, respectfully, you're thinking like prey. Those aliens have been hunting species that think like prey their entire careers. They have no idea what an apex predator looks like." The Corvani ultimatum timer reached 0, and Zethkar's image appeared on screen again. His compound eyes glowed with anticipation as he prepared to witness another species surrender. Your time is up, humans. Transmit your surrender or watch your ship be torn apart. Kane stepped forward, moving into the transmission range. When Zethkar saw him, the alien commander tilted his massive head with curious interest. I'm afraid we decline your offer, Kane said conversationally. However, we have a counter-proposal. Leave now, and we'll let some of you survive to spread the word about what happens when you hunt humans. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. You amuse me, small human. Very well, you have chosen death. My warriors will board your vessel. Those who survive will envy the dead. The transmission ended and Kane turned to Rodriguez. Captain, I need you to lock down all access routes to Deck 7. My team needs 5 minutes to prepare. Prepare for what? To show the galaxy why humans are the most dangerous species they've ever encountered. Rodriguez gave the order, sealing off Deck 7. Throughout the ship, airlocks began cycling as Corvani boarding craft attached themselves to the hull. The distinctive sound of plasma cutters began echoing through the corridors as the aliens prepared to breach. Kane spoke into a small communicator. Phoenix team, this is Alpha, Code Black authorization, weapons free, full enhancement protocols. Active. Show them what we learned on Kepler. The response came back in 12 different voices. Copy Alpha. Time to hunt. The first Corvani boarding party breached through the main cargo bay. 30 alien warriors, each standing over 2 meters tall and armed with energy weapons capable of melting through steel. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never faced serious resistance. The cargo bay was dark and apparently empty. The Corvani commander, a scarred veteran named Hakth, gestured for his warriors to spread out and begin securing the area. They had done this thousands of times before. Humans were a new species, but all species reacted the same way to Corvani superiority. The first indication that something was wrong came when Hakth realized he could no longer see 2 of his warriors, who had moved into the shadows near the cargo containers. He clicked his mandibles, signaling for them to report. Silence. The attack came from 3 directions simultaneously. The enhanced humans moved like deadly shadows, using their superior speed and strength to strike before the aliens could react. Kane emerged from behind a cargo container, covering 30 meters in less than 2 seconds. His hands closed around a Corvani warrior's throat, and the alien's neck snapped with a sound like breaking wood. The other enhanced soldiers struck with similar precision. They moved faster than Corvani eyes could track, hit harder than Corvani armor could withstand, and fought with a tactical coordination that spoke of shared battlefield experience. Within seconds, half the boarding party was down. Hakth managed to raise his weapon, aiming at Kane's center mass. The plasma bolt that should have killed the human struck empty air. Kane had moved again, this time appearing behind the Corvani commander. The alien felt enhanced human hands grip his weapon and watched in shock as Kane crushed the energy rifle like it was made of paper. Your mistake, Kane said quietly, was assuming we were prey. The enhanced soldier's punch drove Hakth across the cargo bay and into a bulkhead with enough force to dent the metal. The Corvani commander slumped to the floor, his chitinous armor cracked and leaking fluid. The remaining boarding parties throughout the ship met similar fates. The enhanced humans had spent months on Kepler fighting creatures that moved faster and hit harder than anything the Corvani had ever encountered. Alien warriors who had terrorized the galaxy for generations found themselves outmatched for the first time in their lives. On the bridge of the Corvani flagship, Zethkar watched his boarding party's life signs disappear one by one. This was impossible. No species had ever offered effective resistance to a full Ravager fleet assault. His warriors were the most feared fighters in known space. Commander, his tactical officer reported nervously, all boarding parties have gone silent. Something is wrong. Zethkar's compound eyes glowed brighter as rage built within him. Launch the second wave. Triple the number of warriors. If these humans want to die hard, accommodate them. But before the second wave could launch, something unprecedented happened. Small craft began launching from the human ship. Not escape pods, but captured Corvani boarding shuttles piloted by enhanced humans who had studied alien technology during their time on Kepler. Kane's voice came over the Corvani communication frequencies, speaking in perfect Corvani. "Commander Zethkar, you wanted to hunt humans. Now you get to learn what it feels like to be prey." The captured shuttles moved with impossible precision, their human pilots pushing the alien craft beyond their design specifications. Enhanced reflexes and tactical processing allowed them to outmaneuver Corvani pilots who had been flying combat missions for decades. The first Corvani fighter to intercept them exploded in a ball of superheated plasma as Kane demonstrated that months of studying alien technology had given him insights that centuries of Corvani experience couldn't match. On the bridge of the Defiant Dawn, Rodriguez watched in amazement as her 12 passengers systematically dismantled one of the galaxy's most feared military forces. The enhanced humans fought like nothing she had ever seen, combining impossible physical capabilities with tactical brilliance that bordered on precognitive. "Captain," reported Park, monitoring the communications. "The Corvani are starting to panic. Their formation is breaking apart." Rodriguez nodded, beginning to understand what she was witnessing. Humanity had created something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. The enhanced soldiers weren't just physically superior. They thought differently. They approached combat like scientists studying a problem, finding weaknesses and exploiting them with ruthless efficiency. The first part of the battle was ending, but Rodriguez knew this was only the beginning. The Corvani had never retreated from a fight, and Zethkar's reputation wouldn't allow him to be the first. This was going to escalate into something the galaxy would never forget. Kane's voice came over the ship's intercom. "Captain, Phase 1, complete. We're moving to Phase 2. Recommend you record everything for the historical archives. The galaxy is about to learn why you don't hunt apex predators." Apex predators. Unleashed Commander Zethkar stood on his flagship's bridge, watching his carefully orchestrated ambush transform into something he had never experienced in 3 decades of conquest. The tactical display showed 6 of his escort vessels already suffering critical damage from attacks by stolen boarding shuttles piloted by the enhanced humans. His warriors, who had never known defeat, were sending panic-filled reports about enemies who moved like ghosts and struck like lightning. The human called. Kane had taken 4 captured shuttles and was systematically hunting Corvani fighters in the space between the larger ships. Each engagement lasted only seconds before another Corvani pilot died screaming. The enhanced humans weren't just winning. They were demonstrating a level of combat superiority that shouldn't have been possible. "Status report," Zethkar demanded, his forearms gripping the command console hard enough to crack the metal. "Sir, we've lost contact with 8 boarding parties. The shuttle's venomous strike and bone render have been destroyed. The humans are using our own technology against us, and they appear to understand our systems better than our own pilots." Zethkar's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. In his long career, he had encountered over 40 different species. Some had fought bravely before being enslaved. Others had possessed unusual abilities, but none had ever turned a Corvani ambush into a slaughter of Corvani forces. The communication system crackled to life, broadcasting on all frequencies. Kane's voice carried across the fleet with calm confidence that sent chills through alien spines. "Attention, Corvani fleet. You came here to hunt humans. Now you're learning what it means to be hunted by something higher up the food chain. This is your only warning. Withdraw now, and some of you might survive to tell others about this day." Zethkar's rage exploded. No inferior species had ever dared to threaten a Corvani commander. His warrior culture would never recover from such an insult if he allowed it to stand. All ships converge on the human vessel. Maximum firepower. I want nothing left but glowing atoms. The Corvani warships began moving into attack formation, their massive weapon arrays charging for a coordinated strike that would vaporize the Defiant Dawn. But as they moved, they discovered that the enhanced humans had used the battle's chaos to deploy throughout the fleet. Small explosions began occurring throughout the Corvani vessels as enhanced soldiers, who had infiltrated during the initial boarding phase, began sabotaging critical systems. The humans moved through alien ships like deadly phantoms, their enhanced abilities allowing them to survive in environments that would kill normal humans. Corporal Lisa Zhang, one of Kane's team members, had enhanced lung capacity that allowed her to function in the low-oxygen sections of Corvani ships. She moved through the flagship's engineering section, her enhanced strength allowing her to physically tear apart control systems that regulated power flow to the main weapons. Sergeant David Park used his enhanced speed to outrun Corvani security teams while planting explosives throughout their ammunition storage. His tactical processor, a biocomputer implanted during the enhancement process, calculated optimal placement for maximum damage. The Corvani found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. The enhanced humans had studied alien psychology during their mission on Kepler, learning to predict how different species would react under stress. They used this knowledge to sow confusion and panic throughout the fleet. Kane's shuttle group had grown as more Corvani pilots abandoned their damaged fighters. The enhanced soldiers captured each vessel intact, adding to their growing fleet. Within minutes, they had assembled a force of 23 stolen Corvani, fighters under human control. Phoenix team, this is Alpha. Kane broadcast to his soldiers scattered throughout the enemy fleet. Execute Shadow Protocol. Time to show them what we learned about psychological warfare. The enhanced humans began a coordinated campaign designed to break Corvani morale. They used captured communication equipment to broadcast recordings of Corvani warriors screaming in terror, mixed with tactical analysis of each ship's weaknesses in perfect Corvani. The aliens had built their empire on fear, using their reputation for invincibility to force weaker species into submission. Now they were experiencing fear themselves for the first time in their species' history. On the Corvani cruiser Blood Harvest, the crew huddled in their command center, listening to their fellow warriors being systematically hunted through the ship's corridors. The enhanced humans didn't just kill, they studied their opponents first, learning how each alien thought and reacted before striking. Private Maria Santos had enhanced sensory perception that allowed her to track Corvani through the maze-like interiors of their ships. She could hear their breathing patterns, smell their pheromones, and feel the vibrations of their movement through the deck plates. To the aliens, she was a supernatural predator that appeared without warning and struck with impossible precision. The psychological campaign worked better than expected. Corvani warriors began abandoning their posts, fleeing to escape pods rather than face the ghostly humans who seemed to know their every move. Commander Zethkar watched his disciplined fleet dissolve into chaos as centuries of martial tradition crumbled under assault by an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. "Sir," his communications officer reported with barely controlled panic, "we're receiving surrender requests from 6 of our ships. The crews are begging for permission to retreat." Zethkar felt his world collapsing. Corvani did not retreat. Corvani did not surrender. Yet here were his most trusted commanders pleading for permission to run from a single human ship with 12 passengers. The final assault came when Kane led his captured fighter squadron directly at the Corvani flagship. The enhanced human had spent the battle studying the massive ship's design, identifying weak points that Corvani engineers had never considered. His tactical processor had calculated firing solutions that would maximize damage while minimizing his own exposure. The stolen Corvani fighters moved in perfect formation, their human pilots pushing the alien technology to its absolute limits. Enhanced reflexes allowed them to execute maneuvers that should have been impossible, weaving between defensive fire patterns that had been designed to stop normal pilots. Kane's fighter penetrated the flagship's defensive perimeter and struck the main sensor array with surgical precision. Suddenly blind, the massive ship became vulnerable to coordinated attacks from the other enhanced soldiers. Zethkar felt his command ship shudder as explosions rippled through its hull. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in red, and the acrid smell of burning electronics filled the air. His tactical display showed critical systems failing throughout the vessel. "Commander," his engineering officer reported, "humans have breached the main reactor compartment. They're placing explosive charges." For the first time in his career, Zethkar felt genuine fear. These humans weren't just winning, they were demonstrating a level of strategic thinking that exceeded anything in Corvani experience. They fought like they had studied his species for years, exploiting weaknesses that Corvani themselves didn't know existed. Kane's voice came over the flagship's communication system, speaking from somewhere deep in the ship's interior. "Commander, Zethkar, this is Sergeant Kane. I'm currently standing next to your main reactor. My tactical analysis indicates that I can cause a cascade failure that will destroy this ship and everything within 50,000 kilometers. Zethkar's compound eyes widened. A reactor cascade would take out half his remaining fleet. "What do you want, human?" "Simple. You're going to order your entire fleet to withdraw immediately. You're going to spread the word throughout the galaxy that humans are not prey. And you're personally going to deliver a message to every pirate, slaver, and conqueror in known space." "What message?" Kane's response came with the cold certainty of an apex predator marking its territory. "The message is this: Earth is protected. Humans are protected. Anyone who threatens our people, our allies, or our interests will face the same fate you're facing today. The age of easy conquest is over. Predators have met something higher on the food chain." The communication channel closed, leaving Zethkar alone with his thoughts. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders that would determine whether they lived or died. The commander of the 7th Ravager Fleet, who had conquered 40 species and enslaved millions of beings, found himself in the unprecedented position of negotiating with his intended prey. Minutes passed in silence before Zethkar activated the fleet communication system. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of defeat and the promise of a changed galaxy. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. Execute immediate tactical withdrawal. Repeat, all ships withdraw from the engagement zone." The surviving Corvani vessels began moving away from the Defiant Dawn, their crews eager to escape the nightmare that had destroyed their reputation for invincibility. As they retreated, they carried with them stories that would spread throughout the galaxy faster than hyperspace communication. Kane returned to the Defiant Dawn in a captured Corvani shuttle, followed by the rest of his team. They had turned a certain death scenario into a decisive victory, but more importantly, they had announced humanity's presence to the galaxy in terms that every species would understand. Captain Rodriguez met Kane in the shuttle bay, looking at the enhanced soldier with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. "Sergeant, what happens now?" "Now, Captain, we continue to Earth. We deliver your diplomatic packages and our mission reports. The galaxy just learned that humans aren't another species to be conquered or enslaved. Word of this engagement will reach every corner of known space within months." Rodriguez nodded, beginning to understand the implications. "And the Corvani?" Kane smiled, the expression carrying both satisfaction and warning. "The Corvani will become our best recruiters. Every story they tell about today will convince other potential aggressors that humans are too dangerous to threaten. Some species will want to ally with us, others will fear us, but none will make the mistake of treating us as prey." As the Defiant Dawn resumed course toward Earth, long-range sensors detected the Corvani fleet continuing its retreat. They would carry the story of their defeat to every spaceport and slave market in the galaxy. Within years, human would become synonymous with apex predator in dozens of alien languages. Dr. Walsh, who had watched the battle from the medical bay, approached Kane with professional curiosity. "Sergeant, if I may ask, what exactly did you encounter on Kepler that prepared you for this?" Kane considered the question, weighing classification protocols against the need for the crew to understand what they had witnessed. "Doctor, Kepler wasn't just a diplomatic mission. It was a proving ground. The planet hosts some of the galaxy's most dangerous predators, creatures that hunt in packs and think tactically. We spent months learning to outfight, outthink, and outhunt things that evolved specifically to kill. And now the galaxy knows that Earth has evolved something even more dangerous. We've announced that humans aren't just another spacefaring species. We're a force that other races will have to account for in their strategic planning." The enhanced soldiers returned to their quarters on Deck 7, but the galaxy had changed. Forever. News of the Corvani fleet's defeat spread like wildfire through interstellar communication networks. Alien governments began reassessing their policies toward the new human species, while pirates and slavers started avoiding areas where human ships might be encountered. Commander Zethkar, his career in ruins, found himself delivering exactly the message Kane had demanded. At every spaceport where his damaged fleet stopped for repairs, he told the story of the day his warriors met something higher on the food chain. Each telling grew more elaborate, and within months, humans had acquired a reputation that would protect them for generations.